And that chapter starts out, the first 3 verses. Hear this word which I take up for you as a dirge, O house of Israel. She has fallen, she will not rise again, the virgin Israel. She lies neglected on her land. There is none to raise her up. For thus says Adonai Yahweh, the city which goes forth 1,000 strong will have 100 left, and the one which goes forth 100 strong will have 10 left to the house of Israel. Okay, it's one last warning for the people. Elohim does not want to judge Israel. It's not his desire. He does not enjoy judgment and devastation. We read in Ezekiel 30, no, we don't read in Ezekiel 33:11 because I didn't put it in there. It's supposed to be in there. Turning to him was their only hope to avoid complete destruction, but they aren't going to do it. He gives the same warnings too in other parts of Scripture, and we've read it before in Isaiah and Jeremiah and other places. Look at verse 4 of Amos chapter 5. For thus says Yahweh to the house of Israel, seek me that you may live. Now he said in those first 3 verses, his word is like a dirge. What is that? What's a dirge? Well, like a funeral dirge. Yeah, it's a. It's a funeral song. And you notice how he describes 90% of them are going to be destroyed here. And they were warned about that in Torah. Deuteronomy 4:27, Yahweh will scatter you among the peoples. You shall be left few in number among the nations where Yahweh will drive you. And Deuteronomy 28, verses 62 and 63, then you shall be left few in number, whereas you were as the stars of the heaven for multitude, because you did not obey Yahweh your Elohim. And it shall come about that as Yahweh delighted over you to prosper you and multiply you, so Yahweh will delight over you to make you perish and destroy you, and you shall be torn from the land where you are entering to possess it. Well, it's something that he has to do. He has to do at the time. He says, seek me that you may live. What's that mean, to seek him? Yeah. Look through, yeah, search him out and seek his ways. That's, there's a lot of places in Scripture where it says to seek him. And when it happens, he promises that he will restore them in the land and bless them in all that they'll do. And they'll all keep his Torah. You know, it sounds like when Scripture says when the people seek him, that this is the time of the regathering in the last days. We see in Deuteronomy 30, starting at verse 1, we'll be coming up on Deuteronomy 30 before too long. So it shall be when all of these things have come upon you, the blessing and the curse which I've set before you, and you call them to mind in all the nations where Yahweh your Elohim has banished you. Well, he says when all these things have come upon you, the blessings and the curses, and they've already happened. Okay? They've come upon him. The time of his face being turned against Israel is over. Okay? His face is no longer turned away from Israel. And we continue here where he talks about at that time his people will seek him. Deuteronomy 30, starting at verse 2, and you return to Yahweh your Elohim and obey him with all your heart and soul, according to all that I command you today, you and your sons. Then Yahweh your Elohim will restore you from captivity and have compassion on you, and will gather you again from all the peoples where Yahweh your Elohim has scattered you. Have you ever noticed, we've talked about this before, people who have turned to his ways, to his Torah, and just his Torah, and Messiah, this hasn't happened until the last few decades? Why not? You know, it's a real anomaly, a strange thing that this just started happening.
Well, you didn't hear about Islam either.
That's true. We didn't. We in the West were ignorant. Totally ignorant of what was going on the other side of the world. They've been nothing but Islam's been nothing but a devastation and a desolation for everything on that side of the earth. And we're here all fat and happy. Before 9/11, did you know the difference between Islam and Hinduism?
No.
I didn't either. Well, it's one of them religions over there, right? Buddhism, Hinduism, Islam, they're all, they're all kumbaya or something, aren't they, right? No, Well, we were ignorant. Ignorant as we could be. Well, these things are coming to fruition. They're all coming to a head.
That's what we were told, too,
Yeah.
by our government.
What?
That, they're just another religious group.
Well, they're trying to say that now. Now they're just looking stupid by saying that. They're just looking utterly stupid. Look, the sky is purple, pink. Okay. I guess it is. You say so, right? It's just stupidity. He says after he's done with the blessings and the curses on Israel, which took some 2,700 years or so, then people are going to start returning. His people are going to start returning to him. And this is a process. We'd like Christianity wants that rapture. Bink, all gone. There, I'm up here dancing around up in heaven with Grandma and Grandpa. And you poor Jews down there, you're going to get all, the Antichrist is going to give you such a rough time. See, Elohim doesn't work that way. Not only is that all just fable, but this is a process that's taking place that he described thousands of years ago. This regathering now, which is taking place, along with the awakening, and his people seeking him, just continuing in that chapter in Deuteronomy 30. If your outcasts are at the ends of the earth, from there Yahweh your Elohim will gather you, and from there he will bring you back. And Yahweh your Elohim will bring you into the land which your fathers possessed, and you shall possess it. And he'll prosper you and multiply you more than your fathers. Now, if you think about it, there aren't many Torah-observant people. There's a few here and there's a few there, but there's more all the time, and it's growing.
That's why it's so narrow.
Yeah, that's why it's so narrow, because there just aren't many people doing it. He said, one from a city, two from a family, and that's it. And he talks about the new covenant. At that time, he's going to bring that new covenant, and granted, it came at Pentecost after his ascension. But there's still been the curses weighed down upon Israel during that time. He says, moreover, Yahweh your Elohim will circumcise your heart and the heart of your descendants, to love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart, with all your soul, in order that you may live. And that's what's happening today. And he says after this, we're going to see the judgment of the nations. And Yahweh your Elohim will inflict all these curses on your enemies and on those who hate you, who persecuted you. That's the next step. And then into eternity, he says, and you shall again obey Yahweh and observe all his commandments, which I command you today. Then Yahweh your Elohim will prosper you abundantly in all the work of your hand, in the offspring of your body, in the offspring of your cattle, and the produce of your ground. For Yahweh will again rejoice over you for good, just as he rejoiced over your fathers. So, it starts when his people seek him, and that's what started happening. People actually started to seek him and know him. Amos 5, verse 5, but do not resort to Bethel, do not come to Gilgal, nor cross over to Beersheba, for Gilgal will certainly go into captivity, Bethel will come into trouble. Elohim doesn't want them to resort to false worship. What happened at Bethel and Gilgal? What would go on there? Buddy, remember? Yeah, that's where those golden calves were set up. Okay. They were in the wrong place to worship Elohim, and they were doing the wrong things to worship Elohim. Had it wrong on every account.
Bethel means
House of Elohim. That's not. But it wasn't right. Right. Originally, that's where Jacob had his dream. Was in Bethel.
Isn't that Bethel, wasn't it in Samaria?
Yeah, that's right. Well, in the northern kingdom, yeah. Verses 6 and 7. Seek Yahweh that you may live, lest he break forth like a fire, O house of Joseph. And they consume with none to quench it for Bethel. For those who turn justice into wormwood and cast righteousness down to the earth. Justice and righteousness had disappeared, kind of like they are disappearing today. And the wrath of Elohim is probably not very far off. He says, man turned justice into wormwood. What's wormwood again? Anybody remember what wormwood is? You read Justin's book. It's in the videos. Commentaries say bitterness. That's not what it's referring to. Remember, that is walking according to the desires of your own heart rather than according to the Torah of Elohim. They were turning justice into whatever they wanted it to be. Okay? Whatever they thought it should be at the time. Instead, justice should be black and white. But they turned it into something that couldn't be identified, into something that's all gray. They made justice whatever they wanted it to be. Verses 8 and 9. He who made the Pleiades in Orion and changes deep darkness into morning, who also darkens day into night, who calls for the waters of the sea and pours them out on the surface of the earth. Yahweh is his name. It is he who flashes forth with destruction upon the strong, so that destruction comes upon the fortress. Okay, the mighty Elohim who made the stars in the sky, he made the sun, which causes night and day, who caused the evaporation and condensation cycle to where the waters evaporate, go up into the sky and fall on the land, who created everything by speaking it, he's going to judge and cause destruction. Okay? It's going to be big. It's going to be big. He is going to judge the unrighteous. Verses 10 and 11. They hate him who reproves in the gate. They abhor him who speaks with integrity. Therefore, because you impose heavy rent on the poor and exact a tribute of grain from them, though you have built houses of well-hewn stone, yet you will not live in them. You have planted pleasant vineyards, yet you will not drink their wine. You see that what they did in that northern kingdom, they hated those who stand up for what's right, who spoke with integrity and tried to actually change things and spoke out against the unrighteousness. Okay, they were hated. And what they would do, they would oppress the poor and demand what they owe them, even though they didn't have it and couldn't pay it. Elohim says, you're going to pay for this. Verses 12 and 13. For I know that your transgressions are many and your sins are great. You who distress the righteous and accept bribes, and turn aside the poor in the gate. Therefore, at such a time, the prudent person keeps silent, for it is an evil time. You know, he knows their transgressions and their sins are great, and they know it too, is what he's saying. They know it too. He said, and if you're wise at all, you're going to keep your mouth silent and not try to justify your sin. Verses 14 and 15. Seek good and not evil, that you may live. And thus may Yahweh Elohim of hosts be with you, just as you have said. Hate evil, love good, and establish justice in the gate. Perhaps Yahweh Elohim of hosts may be gracious to the remnant of Joseph. Now, Joseph, that's standing for the northern kingdom. It's a reference to them. That the remnant that love his ways and live by them and hate evil, they're going to receive grace from Elohim. They're going to receive his graciousness. See, people, his grace, you can't buy it, and you can't earn it, and he gives it to whom he will.
Apparently there's a few left, a remnant.
Yeah, it's just going to be a remnant that are going to get it. And a lot of people today think that his grace is for billions of people, and that's not the case. Verses 16 through 18. Therefore thus says Yahweh, the Elohim of hosts. Adonai. There is wailing in all the plazas and in all the streets. They say, alas, alas. They also call the farmer to mourning and professional mourners to lamentation. And in all the vineyards there is wailing, because I shall pass through the midst of you, says Yahweh. Alas, you who are longing for the day of Yahweh, for what purpose will the day of Yahweh be to you? It will be darkness and not light. Now, the people who are disobeying Elohim are ignorant in their own desires. They're ignorant. They're thinking that they want the day of Yahweh to come. And he's saying, oh, no, you don't. Okay? You don't want it to come. It's going to be a day of destruction for them. They're going to dread it. And I look at 2 billion people in Christianity right now. They think they can't wait for Messiah to return, right? They're not going to like it. They're not going to like it. That's what he's saying here. You know, you're wanting me to return. You're wanting this great day to come. But no, you don't either. You don't want it to come. It's going to be a time of judgment. And these people think, oh man, I love Jesus, that's good enough. Jesus loves me. Yeah, well, this love affair with Jesus thing ain't going to get you very far. It ain't going to be worth anything. You may as well bring money with you and try and buy your way out and see if that helps. It ain't going to work.
It's like that song, Jesus loves me, this ain't that.
Uh-huh. That's it.
I can't sing it.
Verses 19 and 20. As when a man flees from a lion and a bear meets him. Or goes home, leans his hand against the wall and a snake bites him. Will not the day of Yahweh be darkness instead of light? Even gloom with no brightness in it? The text seems to state, if you look at it in totality, that the people had an inward good feeling about Elohim. They had an inward good feeling about him. Just can't wait for him to come back and, for the day of Yahweh to happen. But their actions are lawlessness and rebellion and disobedience. The day of Yahweh will not be a fun day for them. Flee from a lion and a bear meets him. Yuck. Saw a video just the other day. In someone's backyard, a bear got a hold of a deer. I never heard a creature make this kind of sound that deer was making. Woo!
The woods are getting smaller.
Yeah, they sure are. And that bear, he didn't care. Verse 21, I reject your festivals, nor do I delight in your solemn assemblies. Even though you offer up to me burnt offerings and your grain offerings, I will not accept them. And I will not even look at the peace offerings of your fatlings. Take away from me the noise of your songs. I will not even listen to the sound of your harps. If we don't love our neighbor, if we don't help the poor, if we don't stand for righteousness, Elohim doesn't want our attempts at worship. He doesn't want it. We're wasting our time, wasting our breath. May as well just sing to each other. And let's face it, you don't want me singing to you. What makes you think he wants us singing to him? He wants righteousness. He wants justice. He wants us to love our neighbor. That's what he wants. Verses 24 and 25, but let justice roll down like waters and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. Did you present me with sacrifices and grain offerings in the wilderness for 40 years, O house of Israel? Now this, in the Hebrew, the way this question is given in verse 25, it demands a negative. You see, they didn't do sacrifices and grain offerings in the wilderness. They didn't do that. Did you know that? They wandered around the wilderness, they didn't do those things. As a matter of fact, when they were about to enter the land, what was that? The Jordan was in their way, right? The Jordan River. Before they crossed the Jordan River, what did they have to do? Because Passover was coming up. They had to circumcise everybody because they weren't doing that either. See, they weren't doing those things in the wilderness. And
No wonder they had to go 40 years.
yeah, that's right. He's saying they didn't do the required sacrifices for those 40 years. Look in Jeremiah 7, starting at verse 22. For I did not speak to your fathers or command them in the day that I brought them out of the land of Egypt concerning burnt offerings and sacrifices. But this is what I commanded them, saying, obey my voice, and I'll be your Elohim, and you'll be my people. And you'll walk in all the way which I command you, that it may be well with you. Yet they did not obey or incline their ear, but they walked in their own counsels, in the stubbornness of their evil heart, and went backward and not forward. See, if you look at the offerings and the feasts and all that stuff, he says, when you enter the land that I'm going to give you, you shall do this. Okay? Well, he said, until that time, I want you to just be obedient. Well, they didn't do that. They didn't do that. So he did not give them these festivals and these offerings to do, to where they could get closer to him, because they didn't love him. They didn't want to know him. They didn't care. You know, Israel at this point was of the opinion, as long as they're doing their sacrifices, they can act as they wanted. All right? Well, they're wrong. They were wrong. Verses 26 and 27. You also carry along Succoth, your king, and Kiyyam, your images, the star of your gods, which you made for yourselves. Therefore, I will make you go into exile beyond Damascus, says Yahweh, whose name is the Elohim of hosts. Well, that's false gods that they had worshipped. They brought with them. And he says, well, I'm gonna put you in exile for that. Let's look at chapter 6, verse 1. Woe to those who are at ease in Zion, and to those who feel secure in the mountain of Samaria, the distinguished men of the foremost of nations, to whom the house of Israel comes. This is another woe being delivered to Amos. He has some of these woes. It's directed at both those who are in Zion and in Samaria, both the northern and southern kingdoms. That was the capital of Judah and the capital of Israel. The judgment is directed at both nations. See, the wealth and comfort of those nations made them feel comfortable and secure. Their luxurious living has blinded them to their spiritual vacuity. There was no spirituality there. There was no relationship with the Father there. And they were blinded to it because of their prosperity. As long as you got prosperity, what else do you need? It's kind of like us. Boy, September 11th, 2001. How'd your prosperity seem to you that day? You saw how quick that could come tumbling down, didn't you? You know, Islam, they always attacked the Mediterranean trade for the first 1,000 years. They would take the Mediterranean. That's where piracy came from. It's from Islam. And they would, all the trade ships that would go through there, they would attack them and take the trade and enslave the men or kill them and steal the ships. That's what happened. That's what caused the Dark Ages, by the way, was this Islamic attack on trade in that day. Trade stopped all over Europe and that part of the world because it all went through the Mediterranean. And it was owned by Islam. What they do, once again, they attack trade. Where did those planes hit again? September 11th, 2001?
The Trade Center.
The World Trade Centers. Well, I'll be.
Still pirates.
Still pirates.
Something else.
We can't let our prosperity make us at ease because we're not at ease. We are not at ease. This judgment's still coming. All they cared about were their sumptuous lifestyles. You know, the parallels to the West today and to Christianity are unmistakable. Verse 2. Go over to Calneh and look. And go from there to Hamath the Great. Then go down to Gath of the Philistines. Are they better than those kingdoms? Or is their territory greater than yours? You know, Elohim directed these proud men to go to the cities that they once considered themselves to be great and to learn from their fall. Calneh and Hamath were city-states in northern Aram, which is Syria today. They had been overrun by Assyria, which is different, during Shalmaneser III's campaign in 854 to 846 BC. Gath and Philistia had been devastated in 815 by Hazael, king of Aram, which is again today Syria, and again in 760 BC by Uzziah, king of Judah. Now, was Israel any better prepared to fend off an attack than those city-states? The answer is no. Those were a lot bigger city-states than what was Samaria and Israel. Those places had larger plots of land, too, than Israel did. Those cities and the surrounding districts were greater in size than the proud Samaria in their prosperity, yet they could not stave off disaster. They could not stave off disaster. We went for the first 3/4 of the, or more, 80% of the 20th century in what we call the Cold War. Who was that against? Not Russia, Soviet Union. Now you got Russia left. Why? There's no more Soviet Union. Why is that?
Reagan.
Partially because of Reagan.
Well, because socialism doesn't work.
Because communism doesn't work, but that's not the reason. The thing that brought them down? Afghanistan. One of those stinking, nasty Muslim nations defeated the other world superpower. They couldn't do a thing about it.
And it was with our,
We helped them, sure. We're still helping them. So you think we can stave off disaster?
No.
Soviet Union couldn't. That was with one of those little stinking, nasty, desolate countries of Islam. Verse 3, do you put off the day of calamity? And would you bring near the seat of violence? You know, the people put off thoughts of the day of judgment. That's what they're doing. And those people who do not believe in a day of judgment, they have two ways to react to it. The strong scoff at the possibility of being judged for their own actions. And those that are weak just don't think about it. Okay? Let's watch more Barnaby Jones on reruns and just take our mind off of this stuff. But deep down, we all know we're accountable for our wrongful actions. Malicious words, our hate within us, evil thoughts, we know we're responsible for them. The judgment coming to Israel was marked by calamitous times. It's a seat of terror, aptly describes the last years of Israel's history before captivity by Assyria. In the 31 years after Jeroboam II, Israel had 6 kings, 3 of whom seized power by a political coup and assassination. The fear and the violence that they experienced at that time is reflected in the atrocities in just one verse in 2 Kings. 2 Kings 15, verse 16. Then Menahem struck Tifsa and all who were in it and its borders from Tirzah, because they did not open to him. Therefore he struck it, and he ripped up its women who were with child. You know, there's a lot of people that are under the impression that nothing horrible can happen to us in this country, and to them, or in particular, that's simply not true. Yeshua describes the last days before his return. It's a time of great tribulation, and this time is going now. It's been going for quite some time. And he said it's a time that the world's never seen before and will never see again. In Matthew 24, starting at verse 20, but pray that your flight may not be in the winter or on the Sabbath, for then there will be great tribulation, such as has not occurred since the beginning of the world until now, nor ever shall. And unless those days have been cut short, no life would have been saved, but for the sake of the elect, those days shall be cut short. So, and what sign did he say to look for? He said, there's going to be wars and rumors of wars. There's going to be earthquakes. Those aren't, that doesn't mean I'm returning. He said, there's one thing you need to look for. Anybody remember what that is?
Israel being surrounded by Gog and Magog.
Nope. The one thing he says in Matthew 24. He said, but when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, let the reader understand. Let the reader of Daniel understand what the abomination of desolation is. Then let all Judea flee to the mountains. He says, everybody take off. And he says in verse 20, but pray that your flight may not be in the winter or on the Sabbath. He's saying, get the heck out of there if you see the abomination of desolation. Islam. The abomination of desolation, the Dome of the Rock, is the sign that Islam is here. And since that time, since 622 AD, you know how many people have been slaughtered through jihad that are non-Muslims? We know a lot of Muslims have killed each other. But leave those out. How many people do you think have been killed in jihad?
Over 200 million.
Actually, that number got a lot higher due to some writings that were found that were several hundred years old. And the number of Hindus that they killed. It's been over 669 million people that are documented that have been killed through jihad.
They're like a rabid animal.
That's
We
what
want to talk to them and work things out.
what you just said, Tom, is exactly what Winston Churchill said.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's exactly what Winston, he said, dealing with a Mohammedan is like dealing with a dog that has, that's rabid. That's what he said.
They're crazy.
And you didn't know he said that, right?
No.
Winston Churchill's grandson, in a speech in 2006, said, you know, everybody knows that my grandpa warned about the coming Nazi power that was going to destroy people and destroy Europe. He warned them, and everybody knows about that. And in 47 and 48, he warned the world about the communist regime of the Soviet Union that was going to try and do the same thing. He warned them. Everybody knows that. He said, did you know he warned the world about the coming plight of Islam to be worse than any of that? Did anybody know that? And he said, I didn't. That's his grandson. I didn't until recently. Because no one talked about it. Is that not amazing? That was a speech he gave in 2006. In 2010, he passed away. Verse 4. Those who recline on beds of ivory and sprawl on their couches and eat lambs from the flock and calves from the midst of the stall. You know, archaeological findings of ancient Samaria attest to the luxurious living of the Samaritans. Ivory figures, ivory panels, they've been found in excavated homes in ancient Samaria. That term there, the calves from the midst of the stall, it's a reference to where you tie up the ones that are being fatted. They don't roam free, they're tied up. They eat a lot, they get fat. He's saying these Samaritans, that's what they are. They're in the middle of the stall, they're tied up, they're just fat. They're just fat. That's all they do, and they just fat themselves on a routine basis. Verses 5 and 6, who improvise to the sound of the harp, and like David have composed songs for themselves, who drink wine from sacrificial bowls while they anoint themselves with the finest of oils. Yet they have not grieved over the ruin of Joseph. They're supposed to be that they were like David at the harp as they compose music for themselves. I suppose that's how they are. And they don't just drink wine from cups. They drink from sacrificial bowls they use to give sacrifices to their gods. Their sole concern was for their luxurious lifestyles. They had no concern about the impending doom of the northern nation of Israel, being Joseph, and their unrighteousness and their sin. Verses 7 and 8. Therefore they will now go into exile at the head of the exiles, and the sprawlers banqueting will pass away. Adonai Yahweh has sworn by himself, Yahweh Elohim of hosts has declared, I loathe the arrogance of Jacob, and I detest his citadels. Therefore I will deliver up the city and all it contains. Joseph and Jacob are synonyms for that northern kingdom of Israel. Elohim even confirms the truth of his word by taking an oath on himself that he'll do this. Okay?
Why is he loathe the arrogance of Jacob? Isn't Jacob a good guy?
No, it's a synonym for the northern kingdom.
Oh.
And here, that's what I just said. Jacob and Joseph are a synonym for the northern kingdom. Verses 9 and 10. It will be, if 10 men are left in one house, they will die. Then one's uncle or his undertaker will lift him up to carry out his bones from the house. And he'll say to the one who's in the innermost part of the house, is anyone else with you? And that one will say, no one. Then he'll answer, keep quiet, for the name of Yahweh is not to be mentioned. Okay, this passage describes the effects of famine and pestilence during the siege of Samaria. Now, Salmaneser IV and his general Sargon took possession of Samaria in 721 BC after a siege that lasted some 4 years, or 3 years. The inhabitants who survived the siege were transported into Assyria. There were 27,290 survivors, according to one inscription. So completely would Elohim deliver up the city that even if 10 men should huddle in one house to escape the sword, they're going to die by pestilence. A relative who came to take the bodies to burn them would be so afraid of death that if he discovered a survivor hiding in the house, he would quickly beg him not to even say the name of Yahweh in any way, not in lament or in anger or slaughter or in praise for having survived. For in such a situation, to mention the name of him might draw the attention to those whom he had overlooked and cause him to slay them. That's how complete of a slaughter it was. It was not a good time. But that's what he's saying here. Don't even mention his name. You'll remind him you're still alive. That was the attitude. Verses 11 and 12. For behold, Yahweh is going to command that the great house be smashed to pieces, and the small house to fragments. Do horses run on rocks, or does one plow them with oxen? Yet you have turned justice into poison, and the fruit of righteousness into wormwood. After destroying the people, the Assyrians, what they would do, they would smash the houses, just the big houses, the small houses, to fragments. You know, this was the work of their hands that they treasured so much. It's going to be greatly just demolished. You know, horses don't run on rocks without causing great damage. It's also ridiculous to attempt to plow rough rock with an ox. But those things are not as ridiculous as the justice system that they had turned into poison. The judicial process designed to preserve the nation's health had become a lethal poison to the people.
Like ours.
Yeah, kind of like ours. Exactly. And the last two verses did get raptured. I'll read them to you. You who rejoice in Lodabar and say, have we not by our own strength taken Karnaim for ourselves? For behold, I'm going to raise up a nation against you, O house of Israel, declares Yahweh, the Elohim of hosts, and they will afflict you from the entrance of Hamath to the brook of Arabah. Samaria had a long string of military victories in the preceding years. They had a lot of victories. The name of one of the towns that they overtook was Lodabar. Amos intentionally mispronounces the name of the town known as Lodabar, which means nothing. They think their military victories were due to their own might. That's what they thought. You know, boy, we could learn a lot from Amos today. He has a lot to tell us because we're in the same situation. Because judgment's right around the corner. It's right around the corner. Any thoughts? Any questions?
Is there any more chapters?
Yes.
I mean, it's like,
There's 10, I believe, in Amos.
oh, okay.
So we'll have at least 2 more Wednesdays. Okay, let's pray and we'll be dismissed. Heavenly Father, we thank you for your word. Once again, we pray that we take these words from your prophet Amos to heart. We pray for us as individuals and as families, as an assembly, and as a people. We pray for your people, Israel. This we pray as your humble servants. Amen.